Hey, this is Brandon McManus, Denver Broncos Super Bowl champion, and you listen to The Scoop on alscoop.com.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to The Scoop. This is Season 5, Episode 25, alscoop.com's podcast. I'm John DiCarlo, joined once again by the Sams. Sam Newman is back, although he's sick. He's got some sniffles, got some sneezing. Sam Cohn.
Alive and well.
Perfectly healthy. I have been healthy, although I've been sick. So, if you get me sick, I'm going to be bitter.
I would be bitter too. I'm
how
not feeling too
though?
great. No,
Are you taking anything?
I am. I'm taking stuff. Don't worry about it.
Advil, cold, and sinus?
Yeah.
Can't talk about what he's taking, but he's taking.
Yes, it's legal. It's legal. It's not.
Yeah.
This is not a
all of the above.
Yes, yes. Not a performance-enhancing episode of The Scoop.
This is my flu game podcast.
Yeah, it's not any illegal stuff that Sam's taking.
The flu pod.
Sam's drinking plenty of water. We'll be sniffling his way through, but Sam will be contributing greatly to this podcast because Sam talked to Manny Walker, one of the three guys that signed with the Owls today. We should tell you as a programming note, so we're recording this on Wednesday ahead of tonight's Temple-Memphis basketball game, so we'll be getting into that, previewing that game, talking some football recruiting coverage, basketball recruiting coverage, both. The three guys who signed today, Quantel Raines, the transfer from West Virginia, who, unless he receives a waiver, would be a guy that will play in 2021. Manny Walker, the transfer from Wake Forest, who could play right away at defensive end, one of several guys that will be looking to help replace Quincy Roche, who transferred to Miami, of course, the reigning American Athletic Conference Defensive Player of the Year. And then Michael Neese, a guard from Dayton, one of the better programs in the FCS level. Neese could be a guy that could most likely replace Jovan Fair or Vince Picozzi. Hopefully, for Temple's sake, hopefully Vince Picozzi comes back healthy for the 2020 season. I wouldn't expect him to be ready for spring ball. So those are the three guys that signed today. They do have two verbals from the 2021 class already. Justin Lynch from Chicago's Mount Carmel High School, same school that produced Donovan McNabb and a bunch of other players. Sam talked to Justin Lynch, also talked to Jordan Lynch, the former Northern Illinois quarterback, very good college quarterback, had a cup of coffee in the NFL, is now coaching his brother. We'll have some audio from him. Sam got a chance to talk to both guys, Sam Newman. Malik Cooper, wide receiver from St. Joe's Prep, also committed. Haven't had the chance to catch up with him yet. But again, we've got a lot of basketball recruiting coverage, football recruiting coverage, some mailbag stuff. So plenty to cover.
Jam-packed episode.
Got some clips from our interview with Mike Vreeswyk. Part 1 of that conversation is already up on the site. Mike Vreeswyk is being inducted into Temple's 4th Ring of Honor class this coming Saturday, prior to, actually at halftime of the Temple SMU game. Had a great conversation with Mike. We'll play a couple of clips from that conversation. Again, part 1 is up on the site now. Part 2, and these are for subscribers. If you're a subscriber at alscoop.com, you can listen to the entire episode. Part 2 will be up closer to Saturday's game. So got a ton to get into. We'll start with the football recruiting coverage. So today, in the later period, again, Temple signed 21 guys in December, 18 high schoolers, 2 junior college players, and then a transfer from Purdue. The tight end's name is currently escaping me.
Darius Pittman.
Yes, thank you, Sam.
And then you got the wide receiver from Georgia Tech too,
Yes.
Nazir Burnett.
Yes, thank you. He may have a cold, but he's on point right now. Sam's keeping me on task. So today was more of an issue. And again, we haven't talked to Rod Carey on the record. They didn't have any media availability today, but bringing in 3 guys that are addressing positions of need. Quantel Raines, again, a former 4-star recruit from Aliquippa High School just outside of Pittsburgh, was at West Virginia. He was a safety. There was a media outlet in Pittsburgh that had reported that West Virginia was kind of looking to potentially ask him to do the same thing, bulk up a little bit and play linebacker. It sounds like Temple's going to maybe ask him to do the same thing, maybe not bulk up too much, but as I understand it, Raines is probably going to be looked at playing that Sam Franklin role, like what do they call it, the Bumbo or
Bubbo, B-U-B-O.
Bubo. Not to be convinced with the bread company that sponsors the Philadelphia Union. Manny Walker would come in, again, immediately eligible to play defensive end, and then Michael Neese at guard. So no guys out of high school with this class. We say this all the time. There could be more roster attrition after spring ball. There probably will be, and that just happens everywhere across the country. So I wouldn't say that this is it in terms of roster movement. But if we take a look at these three guys, Raines, if he gets a waiver, we'll see if that happens, could play right away. Otherwise, you're looking at 2021 for him. Sam, you had a chance to talk to Manny Walker. Doesn't have the numbers that Quincy Roche has, doesn't have 13 sacks, a former 3-star recruit, had some great offers coming out of high school. He had Penn State, he had Tennessee. You had a chance to talk to him. What were your impressions just from that conversation? And that story is up on the site right now that you can check out.
Yeah, my impressions from him is I feel like he can be definitely a good contributor, and he's kind of set like goals that he said might be unreachable, but he wants to attain them. He definitely thinks that, going to a staff where, they've produced NFL talent, and, you have Quincy Roche who finally, his ascension, he finally came into his own, and like you said, John, he's the reigning AC Defensive Player of the Year. So that was definitely a selling point for him. What was funny is, Walter Stewart kind of slid in his DMs per se in December, and that was a large selling point. Sometimes, yeah. And Walter Stewart,
in recruiting,
yes.
Yes.
Walter Stewart seems to be playing a pivotal role in recruiting the defensive side of the ball for Temple, especially the defensive line. But Walker just seems like a guy who didn't really get a lot of opportunities to play at Wake Forest, a Wake Forest team that has been pretty solid the past couple of years, but it seems like with more playing time, you could see more production, which I would believe to be the case, just because he just looks like the type of guy that if you give him more snaps, he's going to get after the quarterback. And I feel like Temple has put a lot of their guys to seed. He has a little bit of a Zach Mesday situation, if you will, because he's a grad transfer, so this is his 5th year of eligibility, and then he told me that he wants to, or he's trying to get his 6th year of eligibility for next year because he was out when he redshirted his freshman year, and then he was out his entire sophomore season after getting injured in summer ball. So, he seems like he could be a good addition to Temple. They didn't really have a lot of competition to get him. It was a lot of lower-level FCS programs. Boise State and East Carolina were probably the two schools that he said in Coastal Carolina.
Programs, yeah, and then Coastal, yeah.
So Temple, Walter Stewart kind of hit that home for them, and replacing Quincy Roche isn't going to be easy. It seems like they have a cast of characters that, could be in that rotating role that we've seen before, where you had DeAndre Kelly, Quincy Roche, Zach Mesday. I'm probably blanking on a couple of names as well.
Arnold Ebiketie, Trayvon King, and you make a great point. I don't think that, you never know. I'm not looking, I don't think they're looking for Manny Walker to come in and get 13 sacks, but when you look at transfers and you look at grad transfers, you look at two things. How are they going to respond to a change of scenery? And with that, how are they going to respond to new coaching? So, if he comes in, gets you 4, 5, 6 sacks, and we'll see if that happens, and they get production from some of these new guys coming along, whether it's King, Jordan, Ebiketie, and then you're going to get pressure, up the middle with, I thought Chris Banks really stood out last year. Obviously, Ifan Maje played well. So I don't think this is a pound for pound. I don't expect this addition to move the needle for fans to say, oh my God, they got Manny Walker. He's a future first-round pick. But Mesday's not a bad comparison. Now, the difference is Manny Walker was a scholarship guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mesday walked on, had a ton of injuries, whereas, well, not a ton, but had an
if he
history.
can get to similar production that Mesday got for you, you'll be happy with that. But also, I would probably compare him to somebody, a role you might see for him is just maybe similar to Dana Levine.
Yeah.
Just because of, the seniority and maybe a knack to get after the quarterback. But I feel like, Walker's in addition, it's a kind of a wait and see. Maybe, a change of scenery is going to be good for him, especially with seeing more snaps. And it's not like they're not getting a bad player. And like you said, they have, the interior pressure. So if the interior pressure is able to open up the exterior, then, maybe they got a steal. But also, you mentioned Chris Banks. I thought it was funny enough that kind of the players that, Temple showed to him, it just shows you kind of like really what the program's all about. They had Chris Banks, Kanique Bonner-Stewart, and
Kanique, I guess they get him matched up with him on the visit because he's a fellow. Well, he's from Walker's from South Carolina, Kanique's from North Carolina.
Yeah.
But
that was interesting. The crew that they had visit with him, but he said he hit it off with all of them.
Yeah.
They were laughing, giggling, joking around, so he said he fit right in. So it's not, like you said, it's not an addition that is going to get fans like up and excited for and get to the link and whatever, but at the end of the day, I mean, it could just be one of those additions that, like, this guy's going to come in here, he's going to compete, and he's going to get it after the quarterback for us, and that's all you can really ask for him.
Yeah, and I think we'll hopefully get a chance to talk to. Hopefully we can do it before spring ball, but if not during spring ball, I'm looking forward to talking to Walter Stewart about what he saw in Walker, because when you're scouring the transfer portal, there are all sorts of, it's kind of like recruiting on steroids in that you're not looking at these guys over a year-long period or a 2-year-long period. It's like you're doing your homework. What were his shortcomings at Wake? Is this a guy that just needs to change his scenery? They obviously saw something in him that they liked. And Stewart's been able to develop some good players. He's developed future NFL players at Northern Illinois. He developed he helped get Quincy Roche the best season of his career at Temple. So we'll see how that shakes out.
And funny enough, it just shows you how far recruiting's coming, that coaches are sliding into players' Twitter DMs to
exactly.
Why don't you come play for us? So
yeah. And then Neese is a guy, again, coming from Dayton, coming from an FCS program that could end up, if we'll see, there's a lot of time left between now and the opener down at Miami. If Wisdom Quarshie ends up being the guy that replaces Matt Hennessy at center, by then, hopefully for Temple's case, by then, Picozzi comes back, maybe stays at right guard, and then maybe Neese is your starting left guard.
I think there were some concerns, like in our message boards, about maybe his weight. And you know what? It's right now. It's February, so he still has time to put on that needed weight to be an FBS player. But I think that his accolades at Dayton kind of speak for themselves. And if you can plug and play him where Fair was, it's a win.
It's not unheard of. Again, he's not like a Wisconsin-esque, like 320-pound guard, but if he's, I know that Rod wants to. What's that?
A hog molly is Dave Gettleman would say.
Yeah. But again, he had success. It was a really good Dayton offense that he played for, a high-powered Dayton offense. I think they were the top scoring program at the FCS level. So, he's not like 6'5", 275, is a little undersized in terms of his weight, but it's not like he's a 5'11" like wing T offensive guard. So those are the three guys that they brought in today. Shifting over to the 2021 class, they're off to a good start so far. You got one of the better players locally, Malik Cooper, who's played some quarterback for St. Joe's Prep, a dynasty team around here. Gabe Infante, who's now on Temple staff as the running backs coach, working with Rod Carey, was one of several coaches who helped build that program into the dynasty that it is. You get Malik Cooper, and then you get Justin Lynch, the younger brother of Jordan Lynch, who's coaching at Mount Carmel. Jordan Lynch was part of that Northern Illinois team that went to the Orange Bowl, a team that Rod Carey coached. So this is a guy that they've liked for a while. Again, we haven't been able to talk to the coaches on the record about these guys because they don't sign until next December at the earliest. But a Mount Carmel team that went 14-0, was really good out there. So Lynch is about 6'1", 200 pounds, dual threat guy, can throw it. Again, we're only looking at his huddle stuff, but has a lot of MAC offers. I would suspect this is going to be another one of those recruitments. I think they're in good with him because of the family relationship. Yeah. He'll probably get some Big Ten interest. As you guys know, if you're listening to this podcast, it's not a situation where guys in basketball continue to be recruited, but in football, they keep pushing and pushing. But you had a chance to talk to Jordan Lynch about him. Before we play this clip, we've got some audio from Sam's conversation with Jordan Lynch. What were your takeaways from conversations with Justin and then from his brother, who gets to coach him now?
So Justin was pretty adamant that he made this decision on his own accord. He said obviously the relationship helped because he was obviously around these guys with his brother. But at the end of the day, it was a decision he made on his own. They've been recruiting him for a while, I would say. And like I said, the relationship helps because Jordan was pretty adamant that it's like, hey, like, Rod Carey coached me. Mike Vreeswyk was the tight ends coach when I was there. He didn't obviously coach me as the quarterbacks coach or the offensive coordinator, but he was still there. And then when I came back as a running backs coach, I worked heavily with these guys. And he still says that he talks to Carey at least once a week and Vreeswyk a couple times a week. So obviously that relationship is there. But Justin wanted to make sure that, hey, Jordan's my brother, but at the end of the day, like, this is my decision. I'm going to make it on my own accord. And he did. He went, he said, as you'll probably see, it'll probably be up tomorrow, the story, I would say. He went for his visit on junior day, and he committed right there and then. He said he took a picture with Kerry, and afterwards he told Kerry to commit, and they were all like jumping up and down and screaming and excited. So obviously that should tell you that they think what this kid is capable of. But Jordan was pretty candid. He said the kid's a winner. I mean, they went 14-0 and won the state championship. He's a dual threat. He's an athlete. He's a pitcher. Baseball pitcher, which obviously I talked to him about that. He's obviously going to have to give that up because Temple doesn't have that baseball program here, but he said that wasn't a selling point. Like, he would have given up baseball regardless. But at the end of the day, Jordan was like, the one thing that he kept saying is just watch tape, watch the film. Like, I'm his own brother, but the kid can play. That's it.
He makes a point. You'll hear here, he said, like, yes, he can really run it, but he's a pass first quarterback. And Rod's talked to, like a lot of coaches, like when you look at a dual threat quarterback, yeah, we want somebody who can run, but they got to be able to throw it. If you do look at their highlights, we're not seeing every interception he throws, although he didn't throw a ton of them this past season. He's got the arm strength. He's got the mobility. And again, there's a family relationship there. So they would seem to have, can't really say it's their quarterback of the future. He'll get competition from Duncan from this 2020 class, but a guy that they've liked for a while.
One of the schools that he said was recruiting him was that hasn't officially offered him but could is Iowa State. So that's a program to watch out for because Matt Campbell is a terrific head coach and he does a good job recruiting over there. So Temple might want to be wary of that. But I mean, if they continue to build a relationship, I can't see him, going back on his word.
Right. Also, they have a slew of other offers. The Temple staff has a slew of other offers out to more 2021 guys. We'll have some more stories for you in the coming days. Sam talked to Jordan Lodato, a defensive end from Westchester Henderson High School. You can check out that story on the site. And again, it's recruiting season is back for football, so we'll have as much coverage as possible for you guys. So as we mentioned, Sam talked to Jordan Lynch, the former Northern Illinois quarterback and now the coach at Mount Carmel who's coaching Justin Lynch. Here's some audio from their conversation that gives you some insight into the type of player that Temple isn't officially getting yet, but will, for their case, hoping to get once he signs his letter of intent next December in Justin Lynch. So here's part of Sam's conversation with Jordan Lynch.
All right, I guess just first and foremost, if you could, just describe your younger brother as a player and how he is on the field.
Yeah, he's he's a heck of an athlete. As it kind of shows on film, he can, he's a dual threat kid that can do, pretty much do everything on the field. But he's a pass first type of player. There's a reason we went 14-0 this year, which hasn't been done in over 20 years here at Mount Carmel High School. It was because our quarterback play and how smart he is with the ball. He's going to be one of our leaders and senior captains as we go into next season. So the future's bright for him. He does things the right way. He's a great kid on and off the field also. So it makes my job easier coaching him.
And you guys kind of have like a rare dynamic. I mean, you're his older brother and you're coaching him. How does that go about? Like, how great is that for you guys to have that type of relationship?
Yeah, absolutely. I know it makes him tick. I know it makes him go. He's, on the field, he calls me coach. Off the field, it's Jordan. And, we don't talk too much football off the field. But when it comes to football on the field, I treat him just like any other player. And he's a kid that's not looking to, get away with anything because I'm his brother. He's not looking for any shortcuts. Like I said earlier, he does things the right way. He's definitely a great kid to have on the team. And he's going to be, like I said, he's going to be one of our senior leaders next year. It's great to have him back, for 2 years in the system.
Now, I know he told me that the decision that he made to commit to Temple was his own, but what was your reaction that he's committing to a program where is now coached by somebody that you played for and you coached with?
Yeah, I think, he wasn't, I know when his first offer was Temple, and he built a relationship with the coaches. Kind of when I was playing at Northern Illinois, he built a relationship just being around those guys, and he felt comfortable. And it's kind of the same system what we're running here with same terminology. But I told him, you're going to have to build your own path and build your own legacy. Don't go where because I played for him and you're comfortable with him, and that might be a reason why you go there. But you got to fall in love with the school. You got to fall in love with the players on the team and the coaches. And him and my parents went out there on Friday went out there, got there Friday, stayed for junior day and Saturday, and absolutely fell in love with everything Temple had to offer. And he knew right then and there that that's the spot he wants to be, so he ended up committing.
Now, what type of relationship do you still maintain with Rod?
Oh, it's a great relationship. Probably talk, once a week or so. I give him a lot of credit, from where I'm at today. He offered me my first college coaching job, as the running backs coach at NIU, and I stayed there for a year, then took this high school job, and obviously I played for him for 2 years. He was a head coach for one and was my offensive coordinator for 2 years. He's a great football mind, and no matter where he's at, he always seems to win. So I definitely recommended Temple to my brother about what Temple has to offer and what the coaching staff has to offer, most importantly. And he's going in a great fit for him.
Now, how would you say playing for Rod Carey is? Like, for somebody who obviously hasn't experienced that?
Yeah, Rod Carey wants your best. He's a blue collar guy that he wears his emotions on his sleeve, and he's going to let you have it if you're not giving your best. And that's what I appreciate, and that's what I like. And I knew every day, the thing I liked the most, I knew every single day as a player what I was getting myself into. Every day I walked in the door, I knew what I was getting out of Rod Carey. It was never hit or miss with him. I always knew what I was getting with him, but I always knew I was going to get Rod Carey's best, because every day I stepped in the door, he was going to get my best also. And that's what you can expect from Justin Lynch.
And how was it like to be, on a coaching staff, to be on the other side of the picture with him in 2017 when you were the running backs coach at NIU?
It was great. It was kind of the same relationship I had with a player. If you're giving your best as a coach, you're gonna really enjoy being around Rod Carey. It's a time where you start slacking or not giving your best effort. I think that's anywhere in life, though, with anyone being your boss. Rod was definitely great to work for. Family meant everything to him, so there's a lot of family time. Seeing my family and things like that is on the coaching staff, and not necessarily grinding their lives away. He definitely made family important.
Now, after you played at NIU, you were in the NFL for a little bit, and then with Edmonton. Can you talk about those experiences?
Yeah, it was great. I got to go all through training camp and play preseason with the Chicago Bears. Grew up in Chicago, always watching, the Bears on TV. So for me to kind of live out that dream and play with them was a great experience. Then I got cut with them, and I went out to Edmonton. Played 2 seasons in Edmonton. My first year, we won a Grey Cup, and it was it was about 90,000 people at the Grey Cup game. Canadians definitely do football the right way. Then I played one more year out there. Then I was going back for my 3rd year on my contract, and that's when Rod Carey offered me the running back's job at NIU, and it was too hard to pass up.
Now, you kind of hit the peak as besides, actually winning the award, you hit peak as a college football player where, you were a finalist for the Heisman Trophy as somebody who played in the MAC. Like, what did that mean to you as a player?
I don't know necessarily if it meant something to me. I'm kind of a person that just, lives in the moment. I don't get too high or too low on things. I thought it was great for the school, though, for everything, and it was great for our teammates. I see it as a team award. If we don't win 12 straight games, and say if we're not 12-0, our record's 5-5, there's no way I'm in the Heisman ceremony. So we had a great team that year, a lot of great players, and the team really bought in because we put together a whole Heisman campaign before the season even started. And I asked the teammates, if this is something that we can go ahead and do, and everyone was on board, and they were super supportive, kind of with all the attention I was getting. So it was definitely great for the 2013 NIU football team and NIU just in general of getting all that exposure.
Now, have you followed? I know since you have that relationship with Rod, did you follow Temple football at all this year? What did you see from them?
Yeah, I'm a huge college football junkie. I love it all. but I did. I watched them, and they got off to a fast start, that's for sure. Then kind of tapered off a little bit at the end of the year, but it's going to take a few years. Rod Carey's going to get that program where he's got Northern Illinois. It might take a year or 2 years, but he's going to get that place rolling and get Temple football back to where it was back in the heyday.
And you certainly think that the same offense that Rod runs is kind of what you do at Mount Carmel. So you think that'll be a good fit for Justin?
Absolutely. It's the same terminology. It's the same exact playbook with little things mixed in. But as a quarterback walking in the door, you're going to know about 80% of the offense. You're going to know the terminology. And, what keeps kids from playing slow in college are, not knowing their assignments. So you get to walk in with a foot in the door already. So I think it's a great fit for him. And I think anywhere would be a great fit for, this kid. He's a winner. He's a hard worker, and he's going to be successful no matter where he goes.
Now, did you also play for and coach with Mike Vreeswyk?
Yeah, so I played for him and I coached with him also. He's great. He's one of the best, football coaches I've been around, and as a player and as a coach. He's someone that I kind of lean on to this day with, asking questions, this or that. But I've learned a lot from him, and that's definitely it's a quarterback-friendly offense, especially with Mike Vreeswyk calling the plays. So it's you got a chance to put up some big-time numbers, and it's a great system to play for.
How did he help you become a better quarterback?
So Mike Vreeswyk was not my quarterback coach.
Oh, okay, yeah, he was the tight ends coach, right?
He was the tight ends coach when I was there, so I don't know if he helped me be a better quarterback.
But you said you said he's helped you be a better coach, though, per se.
Just a better coach. The guy's more detailed than anybody I've ever been around. He builds relationships with you. He keeps in contact with you, and he's always there to, no matter what time of the day, to help you out, whether it's on the field or off the field. So that's kind of where he's helped me out the most.
Yeah, so I know it's like being Justin's brother, but his coach as well. You feel like I know you'd be support him regardless of where he decided to go, but I mean, knowing that he's going to be in the hands of Mike Vreeswyk and Rod Carey, does that make you feel like you don't really have to worry about it, really?
Yeah, just because I'm comfortable with those guys and I know Justin made this decision 100% on his own. I kind of just told him what that coaching staff had to offer and never pushed him either way. I kind of stayed out of the whole recruiting process.
Yeah, that's what he told me.
But absolutely, going to that and just knowing what those guys done for me and who they are and what you're getting yourself into, those guys are consistent. They bring it every single day. And as a player, that's all you can really ask for.
Now, with him, he's also told me that he plays baseball too. Is he one of the better athletes in your family? Yeah,
he's for sure. He's a great baseball player, been starting on the varsity baseball team since sophomore year. He's a pitcher and he clocks close to 90 miles per hour on the speed gun. He hits a lead off. He's got great upside. And he's got great talent. He's a great worker and a leader, and that's the things that really stick out to me as a coach. Is his work ethic. You might meet someone that has better athletic ability than him. That'll come along, but no one's going to outwork him.
Now, with him, how do you really take it as when you, schools are around and they're talking about him? How do you kind of separate that where, you're his brother, but also his head coach to where you want the best fit for him?
Right, absolutely. I forgot who I was talking to, but the same question kind of came up, and if anything during the recruiting process, I kind of downplayed Justin Lynch because people are going to walk in and think I'm selling him because he's my brother, this or that. So I kind of downplayed him a little bit, and I told him, I said, if you want to see him, have him throw. You make your own judgment on him. I can just tell you the characteristics off the field, what he brings, and you make your own judgment come, with his skill set. But he ended up picking up, 6 or 7 offers. And it's still early in the process, where he picked up those offers. But I think the tape doesn't lie though with the kid. If you turn on his tape, you know that his upside's pretty big.
Now, have Rod and obviously you have those relationships with Rod and Mike Vreeswyk. Are they trying to try and get a little more out of you because they know you about him? Like, hey, don't downplay him.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Like, you have a relationship already with Rod Carey and Mike Vreeswyk. So are they trying to they try and peg you on him a little bit?
Yeah, they trust my valuation. I'm always going to be completely honest with what they're getting. But I mean, he kind of checked all the boxes for them. His big thing is his senior year. He's kind of a reserved kid and quiet. His senior year is going to have to come out of the shell a little bit, and be more vocal. But that comes with experience. It comes with maturity. But when he gets to college, he's going to be 17 years old. He's the youngest junior we have in the school. So that's it's just going to take some time.
Now, do you think that it'll take a lot less pressure off of him as a senior? Obviously, that he wants to go undefeated again, win the championship, play as best as he can, but a lot less pressure that he already has his decision made, and he can take a back seat and just focus on being the best player he can be.
I think naturally, yes. He's a kid that doesn't like to be. He's not a kid that likes to be recruited. He wasn't going to go to all these camps and do all this, and he's a kid that just likes to, loves to play football, and that's it. His work kind of speaks for itself, but I don't know if there's any more pressure off his back, this or that. Probably dealing with less coaches call him, and it's probably a sign of relief, if anything. But I know he's probably happy, just looking forward to spending his last year with his teammates.
Is there any advice that you have given him, just because you've been, what you went through the recruiting process, and you also have played with these guys and coached with them, and you were at the next level? Is there any advice through the way that you've just been like, hey, follow this?
Yeah, I told him, during this whole recruiting process, there's, some things that we just can't fix, with size, right? People look at, they want the 6'3" quarterback, this or that. The thing that you can't control, though, is, you working and your work ethic and your attitude. Just keep plugging along, keep working hard, and good things happen for those who keep working. And that's what he did. He put his head down. He never, since our last football game, when we won state back in November, he has yet to miss a day in the weight room. He just goes about his business, works out, and is always on time for every single event that we have. So he just goes about his business. That's it. That's what I told him. Go about your business. Keep working hard. Whatever you want in life is going to happen. Just keep pushing forward. So I think he does a really good job of that.
Now, on your personal opinion, I guess, on this, as somebody who's like a college football junkie, but also at the same time you played in a MAC school, what kind of your opinion of those the stigma against the group of five schools, kind of, and to see somebody like you who was also a Heisman finalist, but then you look at a program like Temple and where they're at?
Yeah, the Mid-American Conference was such a great conference when I was there. A lot of good, undersized college football players that got looked upon and had a chip on their shoulder. And Temple, I look at Temple's conference, and man, it's such a good conference and so competitive. When I was in the MAC, there was a few games where we would play a year against the MAC schools that we knew we were going to get the victory, And you look at that American Conference that Temple's in, it's hard to look at a team and say, or look at your schedule and say, man, we can chalk up this, victory. You might say that about one team in your conference, but every game is a dogfight, and it's good football, and there's a lot of great teams that were ranked throughout the year. So
now, is there anything that changes in his preparation for next season, just because he's going to be a senior, or is it just more so like more added responsibility as being a captain?
I would say more added responsibilities. We went 14-0, so I'm not going to change too many things around here.
Yeah.
But just, being a senior, it's your last go around. And guys now, all 80 football players on the team are looking up at you as a senior. You weren't a junior looking up at last year you're a junior looking up at the seniors. Now you're on that pedestal where people are looking at you every single day. So it could be a lot to take in for sure if you're not prepared for it.
No, obviously you don't come in and play think that you're going to redshirt, but with Temple, the past 5 quarterbacks that they've brought in have had the red shirt. Do you think, Justin will be able to really just be able to turn on that switch once it's time once it's time to go? I know it's not like a natural progression to just, sit out from playing a year after playing all in high school, but do you think he'll be able to handle something like that?
Yeah, it's that's a huge leap. It's I always recommended it. I know I started my junior year at NIU, and I wasn't ready to play until my junior year. And I'm a Heisman Trophy candidate. It takes a special person to walk in from day one and play. I believe in everything he does on the field. Sometimes it's best for redshirting because you rather play when you're 23 years old than 18. So with him being a young junior, redshirting might be the best way to go. But that's not my decision. That was the coaches at Temple to figure that out.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But like you said, it was probably he's probably going to. What is he going to be, an 18 or 19-year-old freshman?
He's going to be a 17-year-old freshman.
Oh, okay. You said he's 15 right now.
Right now he's 16.
16. He
turns 17 in August. Then next year, when he gets there in June and July, he's still going to be 17 years old.
Oh, wow, okay.
When August hits, then he'll hit 18.
All right, yeah. So if you think that, obviously it's not your decision, but you feel like for somebody who's young like him, you might benefit from, just taking a year off playing on the scout team and learning the offense just because of his age. Yeah,
I think that, and if you think academically too, it gets these kids a year caught up with. It's going to be the first time he's living not in my parents' house, So you're going to have to time management and everything. It's a huge adjustment for a kid walking in. So I highly suggest people get redshirted for sure, especially at the quarterback position.
Jordan, anything before I let you go? Anything else you would like to add about your brother, or the process, or Temple, or anything like that?
No, I think you covered it all, man.
All right, I appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Yeah, no worries. Take care.
All
right. So some cool insight there from Jordan Lynch about his brother. You hear him talking about, the fact that they went 14-0. There's not much to work on record-wise for this program, but again, Temple's getting a quarterback here that's familiar with this system, familiar with this coaching staff. And again, we'll remind you to check out that story on the site once it's up within the next 24 hours or so.
Another interesting note about there that he said, that I recall, is he thinks it might be wise for Justin to redshirt his first year because he's going to be 17 when he comes to Temple.
Yeah,
apparently.
Which is, again, not uncommon for quarterbacks to redshirt, certainly offensive linemen. So,
especially with the amount of Temple quarterbacks that have come in, every quarterback that is on the team right now has had the redshirt, and Duncan is going to have to redshirt this year, obviously too. So
yeah. So, but again, we'll have a story up from Sam on Justin Lynch, and again, hope you guys enjoyed that audio there from Jordan Lynch. Let's kick things over to basketball. As we mentioned at the top of the show, Temple broke a 4-game losing streak in beating ECU on Saturday 76-64. Temple held ECU's Jaden Gardner, the Americans' leading scorer, and easily a candidate for Player of the Year, to just 11 points. Quentin Rose had 20 for Temple, Lonnie Moore, J.P. Mormon, Nate Pierre-Louis all had 14. Sam, you were there. Before we get into what they're facing tonight against Memphis, it's not like they beat a top 25 team, but they needed a win. They got one. What snapped them out of it?
So, again, you hit the nail on the head. They definitely needed that win before going into Memphis, and then, Villanova coming up. They were in a 4-game losing streak. They had to just find a way to put a game in the win column, especially at home. It was much needed. So 3 things that they've done really poorly as of late. They kind of turned around in this game for the most part, at least. They shot the ball 48.9% on the night from the field. They haven't been shooting the ball that great as of late. In the last couple games, and especially through most of conference play, they haven't come out of the gate firing on all cylinders, playing well, playing aggressive. In this game, they did. They went up 21-6 in the first 8 minutes of the game. So they came out firing. They were the one that struck first. They were going to take it to ECU. Then ECU realized Temple's biggest kryptonite of the season, and that's playing the zone defense. Temple does not play well against the zone. They haven't played well against the zone all season. So around the 12-minute mark, ECU falls back into a 2-3 zone, and Temple just falls apart offensively. They can't do anything. They can't get the ball inside. there were sequences where their spacing was good. They were filling pockets in the zone, but they could not get entry passes into the elbow or down to the block, and they couldn't get any movement. It just felt like they're passing around the perimeter, and they're not getting anything. So ECU climbs back. They go on an 18-0 run, closing on the half. Head into the half, ECU was up 32-30. So up 2 at halftime, and Temple's kind of look at themselves in the mirror like, what did we just do? We had a 21-6 lead, and now we're losing. What comes next? The surprise for me was Jake Forrester played just 5 minutes in the first half.
I was going to ask you about that.
Played another 8 minutes in the second half. Understandable the 5 minutes in the first half because he picked up 2 quick fouls. Quick fouls and foul trouble have been something he's struggled with as of late. So I get the first 5 minutes, but the 8 minutes in the second half was what gave me a little bit of a head scratcher. So when they came out in the second half, Jake Forrester was in the game. I figured this is where they're going to figure it out. Hopefully they can attack the zone. And they did an unbelievable job of figuring out. I think they scored on 4 or 5. I think they started off the second half 4 for 5 from the field, attacking against ECU's zone. And that was largely credited to Jake Forrester and Quentin Rose playing a high-low game, being able to get the ball inside, getting better looks at the hoop, whether that be attack the inside to kick right back out for shooters like Alani Moore, or whether they just get a mid-range shot, or whether they get the ball inside. They were scoring at all 3 levels to start the second half. Then Aaron McKie yanks Jake Forrester, and he doesn't play basically the rest of the game. He gets like 2 or 3 more minutes in the second half. But Erasmo Parks largely took his minutes. He played 19 minutes. And I asked Aaron McKie about it after, like, what was the decision? What was the thought process there of playing Jake 13 minutes? Because in my eyes, Jake Forrester was a large part of the reason that they were able to figure out that zone, able to attack it. Aaron McKie said it was just a matter of what was going on in the game. Erasmo Parks was giving him what we wanted to. He said, in the flow of the game, he felt like Erasmo was the better choice. Standout player in this one was definitely J.P. Mormon, who tallied his first double-double of the whole season.
Who you just partnered with on your Cherry Tribune podcast.
Yeah,
Check
exactly. Check out the
Maybe you
link.
had the magic touch, Sam.
Yeah, exactly. I was
some video this week.
I take full responsibility for his double-double, but J.P. Mormon did have a really excellent game, his best of the season. He said after the game he wasn't able to put his finger on it, but it felt like it was the most aggressive game he'd played all season. He wasn't really sure why, the circumstances, whatever. He just wanted to get out and attack these guys. I think a lot of it is the stress building up under him as the captain of he needs to be one of the guys that rights the ship for this team.
Well, you remember after the game, I just saw this as hearsay. I wasn't there, but he said that ECU was one of the first teams to recruit him, but one of the last to offer him.
Yep.
So maybe that's an extra chip on his shoulder.
Absolutely.
And also, he went against Jaden Gardner all the time in high school, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
so
they played AAU together or against each other, I'm not sure, but they have a connection there.
So maybe they just have to find that. Temple's got to find that connection. Get JP, get the eye of the tiger going, and
so
something.
yeah, exactly. So
from the 80s,
I mean,
I like it.
so big thing in this game was which a huge bright spot for this team moving forward is they struggled against the zone, which they have before, and then they were able to figure it out. If they can figure out how to play against the zone, I think Kyle sent a text during the game to us, something along the lines of like, any coach that doesn't play the zone against Temple basketball
should be fired.
Yeah. And that's absolutely true the way they're playing. But Temple showed in this ECU game. You mentioned ECU, not a top 25 team. They're not the best in the American Conference by any means, but figuring out how to play against the zone, playing against the zone effectively was a huge, huge move in the right direction for this team.
Just a quick note that I want to make, and we'll come back and talk about recruiting and that sort of aspect, but I don't think enough credit, and we can talk about until we're blue in the face, has been given to McKee and his staff of how they've been able to develop Erasmo Parks. Because like you said, John, last year he looked like kind of like a lost cause. He had a shoulder injury, he was struggling to get back, and this year he's played a lot of.
He's given quality minutes.
Quality minutes.
He's not playing 25 plus minutes, but he's giving when he's getting on the floor, he's not making a lot of mistakes.
And they felt comfortable enough to play him over Forrester in crunch time too. So I mean, he's earned the trust of the staff.
It was the LaSalle game earlier in the season. I think Erasmo had something along the lines of like an 8-5 stat line. And after the game, Aaron McKie said, he is giving us something. He's producing something for us. And that's as much as we can ask for right now. He's a redshirt freshman.
Especially last year when you didn't know what you were going to get out of this guy. So, I mean, you just have to be happy with the production you're getting at. And I feel like, like we said, there's been a lot of complaints about maybe the lack of player development that we've seen this season and recruiting aspect. But I mean, they might have found something in Parks who can play a key role as a role player.
Last thing I'll touch on in this game is I'm going to hammer the same point again. When Alani Moore plays well, this team plays well. I was shocked that he played 37 minutes, but he was knocking down shots. He hit a 3 in the first minute of the game. He finished with 14 points. When his confidence is there and he's knocking down shots, he's able to facilitate a lot more, and other guys on the floor feed off of that because it all starts with the point guard.
Yeah, in Parks' case, they're all gonna have their hands full tonight at Memphis. There's no James Wiseman. We know he's on to preparing for the NBA draft. DJ Jeffries is actually out, which is a huge plus for Temple. Parks, I think, is still gonna have his moments where he's not as athletic as he needs to be. He might get a shot blocked. I mean, he's not a dominant 6'10" big man, but Sam, you do raise a good point from where he came from coming out of high school to the fact that he's giving them any sort of role this year. It helps. I mean, he did, I think it was 2 games ago where he just flat out lost the ball off his foot in transition. He might have a couple of ugly moments here and there, but the fact that Aaron felt comfortable going with him down the stretch in a game that they needed to win it does say a lot about his development.
This is purely speculation, but if I were to guess, I'd say a lot of the reason that he played Erasmo over Jake in that game, and we might see a little bit of those split minutes moving forward, is Jake gives so much offensively, and you've heard me talk about it. I think it's absolutely true what he brings to this offense. But defensively, when Jake's matched up against bigger guys are able to get it over them, or he's getting in foul trouble. And Erasmo Parks is a bigger body and can be a good defender. Going up against a guy like Precious, whether that was like to give him minutes to prep for this game, or maybe they're 2 separate clauses, but I think that it's something to look out for someone other than Jake Forrester to guard Precious.
Now, I'll ask you this question for both of you. We spoke Justin Hamilton playing in the 4 into the existence on this podcast. Do we think Erasmo Parks can play at the 4 with Jake Forrester at the same time, or do you think they do things too similar where it'd be causing trouble for them?
That's a great question. My inclination would be it'd be tough to space the floor just because they both want to play low. When you talk about Justin Hamilton, he's more ready to play. He's more interested in playing like the high block or out on the perimeter.
Yeah, I don't think either one of them shoots enough from beyond 10 feet to both be on the court at the same time. But hey, if you need defense down low and you have like a team like who has got 2 6'11" guys down front, and they might have to go to that.
The one thing I will say is that Erasmo and Jake both like to set screens. They both want to run the pick and roll. So you could kind of get some scheme there where you put one of them on the opposite, on the weak side block, and then have the other on a screen and roll on the strong side.
The problem is they don't have the point guard that run that pick and roll.
That's the other. Each problem plays into the next problem.
Josh Pierre-Louis, still a work in progress, still has some work ahead of him. But I think you do make a great point with, it's an obvious one, but a very important one. Just getting J.P. Mormon going is huge because, again, we don't know if they'll have Dre Perry tonight. Getting Dre Perry back would obviously be big. Statistically speaking, he's their top 3-point shooter. He can rebound. He can defend. They weren't really getting much out of J.P. He had been struggling. For him to have a bounce-back game was huge. They're going to need everything they've got in the tank tonight. So they're 11-10 overall, 3-6 in the league standings. Temple's in a 3-way tie for 7th place right now. You have a super talented Memphis team that's 16-5 overall, 5-3 in the league. Tulsa's kind of surprised everyone and won 6 in a row to top the conference standings now. They beat Temple by 26 last month, and they beat the crap out of this Memphis team by 40. So, again, we won't see James Wiseman tonight, off to preparing for probably becoming the top pick in the NBA draft this year.
Bigger and better things.
But we will see Precious Achiuwa. He's 6'9", 225 pounds. Big-time recruit for Penny Hardaway in his own right. He was a McDonald's All-American, a 5-star recruit, ranked 17th by rivals in the 2019 class. He's the only player in the conference averaging a double-double right now. DJ Jeffries have been averaging just a shade under 11 points a game. He's out the next 4-6 weeks with a knee injury. Temple won't have to face him. Lester Quinones averaging a little more than 10 points per game. He was part of that loaded 2019 class. Quinones was a 4-star recruit, ranked 48th nationally. He's shooting 35% from three-point range, but just 22 of 62. Tyler Harris is their biggest three-point shooting threat in terms of volume. He's seen his minutes decline a little bit over the last 3 games. He's shooting a shade better than 34% from 3, has the most attempts on the team with 108. And yet, this is a Memphis team that's had its warts. They've lost 2 of their last 4 at FedEx Forum. One of them was a non-league loss against Georgia. They're the second worst free throw shooting team in the conference at 67.7%, although Temple's just 2 spots ahead of them at 68.5%, so not much better. They are leading the league in field goal percentage defense at 36.2%. third in the league in rebounding margin, second in block shots, which will make it tough for Temple. They take a bit of a hit there because, again, Jeffries, who's out, had 21 of those blocks and was their second leading rebounder. So a lot to face there, a lot of talent. It's hard to play at FedEx Forum. They get crowds there. They get a lot of energy there. Memphis did allow Tulsa to shoot 50% in that route, and they allowed SMU to shoot 45% in a loss. But they've tightened things up defensively in their wins over UCF and UConn. This would be a big win for Temple. Not
Huge,
as big as, obviously, not as big as if you beat them with James Wiseman, but still a game, a big conference road win. Can they do it?
I think they can. There's a lot that has to go their way. They have to shoot the ball well. They have to defend. They have to slow down a guy like Precious. Temple basketball, I mean, this is dating back to last year, but has proved that they can stop incredibly good big men. Taco Fall came into Liacouras Center last year, and they held him in check for largely the entire game. Mm-hmm. One guy who he didn't mention that I want to point out about Memphis is they have an Alani Moore type player. He's 6'3", Boogie Ellis. Yeah. He's the kind of guy that's played as low as 9 minutes and as many as 34.
Right.
But when he gets his stroke going, he can hit you for 4 or 5 threes in a game. Yes. He's got a real clean stroke, and he's got real good court vision, so he sees the floor well. He can command an offense.
UConn, right? Didn't he have? He just went off recently, and his 3-point shooting numbers are not great.
He had 14 against SMU. He only had 6 against UConn. His 3-point from the field, he's shooting like just over 30%. But he's at games where he's shot.
That game recently where I think he hit like.
He's had 5 games where he's gotten over 60% from 3.
One of those games recently, I think he went off for like 2 or 3 threes.
Yes.
He had 3 against SMU and 2 against UCF.
Okay, there we go.
Sam, you mentioned a lot.
6 against UIC.
You mentioned a lot has to go right for Temple, but one thing that you can look on is the success. There's Memphis. Granted, it's not the same Memphis team that came to Liacouras Center last year, but I think Temple, Memphis made 1 3-pointer the entire game. So if they can play enough. Solid defense behind the arc. I mean, they have a good chance at winning.
Temple does play very good perimeter defense. They often don't let other teams get much action off screen and rolls because they hedge on screens so well. They push guys off the 3-point line. They don't allow a lot of shooting there.
That worked last year, but obviously this isn't the same as this team, but you have a lot of similar pieces. So
the question is, when they do run stuff like that, or when they do try to get the ball inside or make entry passes, how well can you defend the interior? And that's what's going to make or break this game. Can Temple shoot the ball at a high rate, a high clip, and can they defend the interior?
Would we expect to see some zone tonight out of Temple?
Out of Temple, I'd be shocked. I would say no.
I mean, what if Memphis starts out and they start dumping the ball down to Precious and they just can't do anything to stop him?
I just don't see Temple running a zone.
I'm not saying they're a great zone team.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they are. We'll talk a little bit of matchup zone later in the podcast here with Mike Vreeswyk, but they're not anything resembling that. But I just thought it might be something Aaron might try for a few possessions just to, again, like Memphis has some spotty 3-point shooters. They can hit from 3-point range, but I wondered if they might try some zone tonight, just to throw a different look out there. Because again, like you mentioned it, like Jake Forrester's athletic, but pound for pound going up against Precious is probably the better player right now. If he has any issues, and then you got to put Arashma Parks on him one-on-one. Again, anybody they put on him tonight is going to be tough. Mm-hmm. I just thought, I don't know. I'll be interested to see if they try to zone up.
It's not the worst idea. The only thing that would make me nervous and something like that is I don't know for sure if Precious can extend to like shoot around 13, 15-foot jump shots, because if he can, then the zone's not going to do much to stop him.
One other big concern that you have for Temple is their big men have gotten in foul trouble a lot. So
that would really hurt.
You foul trouble, you can forget it.
You have to be really careful. But the other option is, do you try to take all 4 guys out of the game and just let Precious take over? Not let him take over, but make Precious be the one to score for them and take all 4 guys out of the game.
I mean, you saw what that happened when they played. What team was it? Where Cincinnati, where you had Vaught. So Chris Vaught had 16 in the first half. They largely shut him down the second half. He doesn't score till garbage time. Yeah, but when they put their attention on one player and give it to
that's what makes me nervous, because
Cumberland not a factor in the first half,
Temple,
a huge factor in the second
Temple
half.
does really, really well against, like, when they're able to shut down one guy. It's when teams have multiple weapons, that's when they start to struggle, because Cumberland didn't score in the first, had 2 points in the first half, didn't score for much of the second half, and then had 15 in the final 2 minutes.
Well, that's why they were able to beat East Carolina, because you can take away Jaden Gardner, but it's not like East Carolina has the weapons that Cincinnati or Memphis possesses.
Ryan Daly, another example of taking away a really, really good offensive threat, and the teams that don't have other guys. So question is, if you do take Precious out of this game, where does Memphis look, and how well can you keep up with those guys?
And I'm sure if you were to talk to Penny Hardaway, here's a guy who's still trying to figure out how all the pieces, he's constantly had to shuffle things. Even if James Wiseman was healthy, he's healthy. Even if James Wiseman had not had his issues with the NCAA and he was going to play and say, okay, I'm truly one and done. If James Wiseman's in the lineup, DJ Jeffries is in the lineup, and they're loaded, this is a coach and a coaching staff that was still trying to make all this work. It's a luxury, but they have so many different moving pieces and parts. Even with this roster as talented as it is, he's still trying to get the right combination, the right lineup there. So, there's some hope there, but again, this is going to be an uphill battle for Temple. But
I would say Memphis is a better skilled basketball team. It's definitely not a crazy thing to say somehow Temple finds a way to win this game. They just have to do they've had games or stretches where they do the same things wrong. They either come out really slow and they go down early and they have to crawl back, or they're not shooting the ball well, or they're turning the ball over too much, or their team goes into a zone. They have to figure out how to not do those things. And it all starts with, can you be aggressive and strike first out of the gate?
Mm-hmm. Looking ahead at recruiting, we're going to have a couple stories up on the site this week. Sam Cohn had a chance to talk to Jaleel White from Wildwood Catholic, who's going to be coming in with next year's class, the 2020 class. You talked to Jaleel and his head coach at Wildwood Catholic, Dave DeWeese. We're going to play some audio here in a couple minutes for you. Graham Foley talked to Quincy Ademokoya, who, by all indications, should give Temple a big boost. Anybody good at this point, but in terms of shooting, Quincy Ademokoya really filling it up down in Georgia right now. Sam, wanted to ask you about your conversation with Jaleel and Dave and what stood out from that. Again, these are going to be recruiting updates just on their senior seasons. If you've missed it, Jaleel White is a 6'7" point guard, point forward, plays point guard for a while with Catholic. Wasn't necessarily playing point guard for his AAU team. Had the meniscus tear in his knee. If you guys have been following his recruitment, you know his story. Didn't really recover from the meniscus tear until, before the season. Has still been kind of rounding his way into shape, but you had a chance to catch up with those guys this week. If you give our readers and listeners a glimpse of what's going to be in your story.
Yeah, so the good news moving forward is something we've talked about a lot, is Aaron McKee doesn't necessarily have the pieces of how he wants to play. Jaleel White, I think, is the embodiment of what Aaron McKee wants for the future of this program. He's listed at 6'6", 180 on Rivals. He's now 6'7", 195, and he's a ball-dominant point guard. He wants the ball in his hands. That is a guy that's got the size, the athleticism, can defend. That's a large part of what Aaron McKee wants with this team moving forward if he can play the point. So that's a huge bonus for this kid coming out of Wildwood Catholic. Talking between him and his coach, Dave DeWeese, about the injury, it sounds like it was the kind of thing where, so he tore his meniscus back in April of last year in an AAU tournament. He had surgery in May, and then he was ready for his senior year. He's had a couple very, very minor setbacks this season. A little bit of swelling here. Yeah, he's had some soreness. He's had a lot of swelling. He said he something with his quad. I can't remember off the top of my head. He might have strained his quad just above the injured knee, but a lot of it's been nothing awful. It hasn't set him back. The major things that stuck out for me that they said are he's going to see the orthopedic surgeon a fair amount, and just about none of it has to do with re-aggravation of injury. It's all about just getting strength back into that knee. I talked to him about because knee injuries are largely a really mental crutch. Coming back from that takes time, mentally more so than physically. Jaleel White said he's been okay. He feels good about it. He feels fine moving forward. He likes the progression he's taking. His coach, Dave DeWeese, said there's been times where it feels like he's a little more hesitant when he feels like that knee isn't as strong as he wants it to be. There are moments in games where he'll maybe take a step back if he doesn't feel as strong. But for the most part, he's recovered well. He's doing well. He's getting stronger, and he's getting better. The main thing that he's improved this season is his three-point shot. Both Jaleel and his coach said that it's not where it needs to be. It's not where Jaleel wants it to be, but it's absolutely improved. Jaleel mentioned he hit 7 threes all of last season, and he's said he's around tripled that number in the seasons. They got 8 or 9 more games left on the schedule. So He's a guy that can get to the rack. He's a guy that can finish creatively in traffic around the rim, but he wants to expand that game beyond the three-point line. He wants to get a better jump shot, and he's working on getting his teammates involved because Aaron McKie told Jaleel White he will play point guard for this team. That's going to be his role. That's going to be his position. So ball handling and getting his teammates involved have been a huge factor for what things he's been working on this season. He'll continue to work on moving forward.
Yeah, and again, I think we say all the time we shouldn't do comparisons, and yet here I'm going to compare. If you were looking for a Temple comparison, you might think of a guy like Marty Collins, the last guy to be drafted in the first round from Temple, a guy who's not like quick twitch, explosive, but still really smooth, has gotten a lot stronger with the ball. And again, if you have a 6'7" guy with an improving jump shot who can handle the ball, he's going to be an asset for you. So he's coming in with the 2020 class, as is Quincy Ademokoya. We mentioned earlier that Graham Foley talked to him. We'll have a story up on him. He's part of the shooting help that you need. Was a big get for Temple in this class. He's not in the Rivals 150 yet. A lot of programs like Georgia Tech, Marquette were trying to get him to reclassify to 2021. But a skilled shooter. You'll hear him just in a second here in his conversation with Graham talking about his handle. Graham talked to us, he's not here today with us recording, but said that, one of the things you can expect to read in the story is that Quincy has talked with the guys, talked to Nate Pierre-Louis. He's been talking to Nate about 3 times a week, asking him where he likes the ball. The guys have talked candidly with him about how they feel like this season's been a disappointment and how he can help next year. So he's a guy who I think it's all prognostications at this point. I think Quincy Ademokoya might be playing a little bit more than Jaleel White next year, but we'll see how that goes. So here's an excerpt of Graham's conversation with Quincy Ademokoya, again talking about just his game and what he sees his role as next year coming in with Temple.
I expected them to probably win a few more games. I can observe a lot of things. Like them dudes. The defense is so compact, and they're just baiting him into jump shots and talking the lane for Nate. Quentin, Josh, all the dudes that look to create off the bounce. It's just a pace ball. So, they need a guy that'll spread out the floor and hit jump shots. So, the defense will spread out a little bit more. They told me just to come in and play hard, and I'll see a lot of minutes as a freshman. They see me as a shooter, but, they see me as I can do other things, too. I'm an athletic kid. I'm bouncy. I got a little handle on me. I can defend. So, shooting is my best aspect, but I can do a lot of other things. It's going to be a lot of fun because they can use me in a lot of different ways.
All right, so again, some more basketball recruiting stuff to look forward to on the site with Graham Foley talking to Quincy Ademokoya, part of Temple's 2020 recruiting class. Before we dip over into the mailbag, told you at the outset of the show that I wanted to play a couple of clips from my conversation with Mike Vreeswyk. Had a chance to talk to him last Friday. Mike, for those of you who were really on campus in the 80s or were fans growing up and remember some of those really, really good John Chaney teams, you guys are looking at each
Not
other.
us.
You weren't alive. I get it. You're young.
Not
I'm
I.
old. I'm over
No,
it.
sir.
Honestly, if you go back, I will tell you guys, if you can go back on YouTube and watch parts of those games, you hear throughout our conversation. Again, the interview itself we have broken into 2 pieces on the site. Part 1 is up right now. Part 2 we will have up later in the week, close to Saturday's game, when he gets inducted into the Ring of Honor. But Mike is tied with Aaron McKie on Temple's all-time scoring list with 1,650 points. One of the better shooters to ever come through this program. Had a couple of NBA tryouts, but played largely overseas, but was a terrific player here. We're going to play a couple clips from that interview. Really enjoyable to talk to Mike. This first one is him talking about John Chaney's zone. Again, if you know this program, that was the staple of what John Chaney did, whether they played 2-3, 1-3-1. It's a hybrid of man and zone looks. And I thought this was a cool clip where Mike's talking about how at a certain point, him, Mark Macon, Howie Evans, the players kind of put in some of their own wrinkles, which John didn't mind. And a lot of people remember John Chaney as this powerful, screaming, intimidating. He had that one-eyed Jack stare, and he did. He was really, really hard on his guys, but he did also give them kind of the leeway to do some of the stuff they wanted to do, whether it was your guard, shoot it. In this conversation, Mike talks about how he ran a 3-guard offense. I knew I'd be able to shoot the ball, but you'll hear Mike talk about how the players put in some of their own wrinkles in the matchup, and I thought that was pretty cool once they got to a point where they could run with guys as they come through the paint or something like that. And of course, they knew they had a good player in Tim Perry to block shots if they ever made mistakes. So this first clip we're going to play is Mike Vreeswyk talking about how the players added some of their own wrinkles in the zone.
But was it just as fun to watch an opposing team come down the court and look at the zone, and no matter how much they tried to simulate it, just see the look of confusion on their face and see them get worn down and worn down and worn down? Was that just as much fun as hitting a three?
Maybe not as much, but no, it's definitely it definitely gave us fuel because we had so many different unique ways to do our zone,
right?
And a lot of it that year, the players just figured out. Mm-hmm. The players on the court just figured out, and it was always interesting when teams would come down and they would run their man-to-man offense, because and they would even call it out. It's man. They're playing man, whereas we were playing our zone.
Right.
Sometimes we would follow guys through. Other times we wouldn't. It's a little bit maybe hard to explain to this tape recorder, but you might have to see it on video. Right. But the starters that year, it was me, Howie, Mark, Ramon, and Timmy. We knew the zone and the slides so well that we started putting our own wrinkles in, which Coach was totally fine with, because we communicated so well. Mark and myself were on the wings, and sometimes we would follow a guy through, and the other players, Howie would then bump over to a wing, and if it was me following a guy through, Mark would then bump over, and he'd be on the point. It would just be a different look, but we were still in the zone, and now all of a sudden teams were thinking we're in man-to-man. And then, of course, it always helped to have Tim Perry behind the back line protecting the basket, and he made up for a lot of our mistakes as the perimeter defense. But yeah, I mean, that really got us going. And when we would turn them over and they would take bad shots, it was just contagious, and it really helped our offense. I mean, people think of Coach Chaney as slow and methodical, which maybe there were some teams that were like that. Out of necessity, but the teams that I played on, I think we averaged quite a lot of points as a team. It wasn't very slow and methodical back then.
And so the second clip that we're going to play here is from part 2 of our conversation. Of course, talk to Mike about the guy he's tied with on the all-time scoring list, Aaron McKie, and Mike's impressions of Aaron McKie's job as head coach. Now, we talked just before the ECU game, so this was the day before, on the day before the ECU game. So, but he's talking about the job that Aaron's done here so far, what he's going through as a head coach. So here's the second clip from that conversation.
I check in with him much more in the off season. I don't want to bother him. I'm sure he's got tons of things on his mind. He's reached out to me once, and I'm there if whatever he needs. I tend to kind of leave that alone, knowing that how busy he must be. But I'm sure he's frustrated. It's almost been like 2 different teams this year. I can't really put my finger on it. I'm certainly not behind the scenes every day. But I know one thing, Aaron owns it. I'm sure he owns it, because that's the type of person he is, the type of player he was, and I'm sure that's the type of coach he is. A first-year coaching situation of being the head coach it's got to be tough for anybody. I know he was on the staff, but it's the head coach is where it starts and stops. He's got to, because I think of the coach in waiting situation, he really couldn't get a staff in place until it was all said and done, and that's extremely important. because those are the guys that are out. They're on the front lines, recruiting, scouting. So it's going to take some time, but I think we're all confident that he's going to get the job done. You don't have to be a brain surgeon to figure out that in college basketball, most of it is being able to get the players, in. That's half or more of the battle, and we'll just have to see where that ends up. I'm confident that he will get the players in, and I'm excited for the future.
All right, so again, had a lot of fun talking to Mike. Part 2 of that interview will be up on the site. Again, he'll be inducted into Temple's 4th Ring of Honor class on Saturday at halftime of Temple's game against SMU. Let's go over to the mailbag. We got some questions from the message board. Got a couple from Twitter, at least one from Twitter. And our friend Pat Egan from The Fanatic has hit me with a question that I'll end the show with via text. It was fun to hear from him. First question comes from Malenko on the message board. Looking at the football team today with signing day over, what are the biggest question marks position-wise heading into the spring? Sam?
I would say right now, looking at the roster, we talked about defensive end.
Yeah.
And that probably is. You have a lot of guys who have the potential to contribute, but it's just there's just too much raw potential there that you don't know blindly looking in the spring ball. I think safety is also a question mark. You have returners. You have Deshaun Winston. You have Amir Tyler. You have MJ Griffin, who has a chance to start as a redshirt freshman.
I think he'll be a guy to watch. Yeah.
So you just don't know with that position because you're losing a starter there, Benny Walls, and you're losing a starter there, Aaron Monroe. So, I mean, and corner too as well. I think a lot of it comes on the defensive side of the ball. We know what to expect offensively. It's just about whether they can execute. Corner for me is another question mark. I know Christian Braswell. I was always the one who advocated. He's a really good number 2 cornerback for them. Very physical, and I think he's going to start at number 2 cornerback again this year. But who's going to be that guy who steps up for Harrison Hand? You just don't know because you have Kamir Brown returning, you have Freddie Johnson back. And a whole lot of more question marks. You also have Ty Mason, but he's more of a nickel guy. So who's going to be that guy on the outside who stands out? Because, I don't know right now, and maybe Temple doesn't know either.
Yeah, I got to agree with Sam. It's a lot of it's defensive side, and a lot of it's the front 7. You know what you're getting from Anthony Russo, Ray Davis. The wide receiving core is largely the same as it was last year, minus Isaiah Wright. So defensively, when you're losing guys to graduation, to the NFL, where are you getting guys to come up from, whether that's younger guys or guys coming in through transfers or whatever, and then at center, I don't know who's filling in for Matt Hennessy. Who's
So again, it could be Wisdom Quarshie from St. Joe Hamilton as a guy that Matt Hennessy himself talked to me about. If he's the guy who steps in for you at center, then again you might be looking at your transfer from Dayton as a replacement for Jovan Fair. But yeah, offensive line's a question mark. Even just beyond, you hope you have your bookend tackles in Adam Klein and Isaac Moore, but those guys have to take a step forward in their development, a big step forward. Again, they've been solid, they've been serviceable, they've been progressing since they were part of Jeff Collins' recruiting class, and they have starting experience, but those guys have to take a step forward. And Vince Picozzi's not going to be ready for spring ball as far as we can see.
If he's ready for the season, though, he could always be a potential to start at center, too, if you think about it, because you could always put Neese at left guard and you can put Hooper at right guard, who played well down the stretch. But I think the most reasonable thing now is to expect Picozzi not to be ready for the season, maybe just not rush him back because of who they're playing in the first game. So you might have Neese at left guard, Hooper at right guard, and Corshire in the middle. That's what I would expect at this point.
And who will flash a guard? Who's gonna get some snaps in there with Picozzi out? I think safety is a position, as you said very astutely, to watch. Does Trey Blair as a mid-year enrollee, a guy who still should technically be in high school right now, does he show you anything in spring ball, whether it be at safety or even as a guy on special teams? You're going to have to, as much of a disappointment as Isaiah Wright was in the return game this past season, there's still shoes to fill there in terms of a kick returner and a punt returner. So
who would you anticipate, the guys that are going to be in the mix for that?
don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, I think Blair could get into the mix because he can get it and go, and he's quick, he's fast, and he's strong.
Who's the receiver's name? Who's the receiver who's number 26? And I'm drawing a blank at.
Trevon Williams?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Williams
he's
could be
always
in
an
the
option
mix.
back there.
So we'll see. I mean, and again, can you get somebody with the kickers they're bringing in to push Will Mobley? Will Mobley really doesn't have range beyond 45
I think
yards.
I think they're gonna have a new kicker and punter this year.
Yeah,
I think
I
both
mean,
of
you
those
have
guys
to.
are gonna play.
Can somebody press Adam Barry? Can you get things stabilized at the long snapper position? So there are definitely a few positions
Well, it seems like they
to
did
watch there
when they put in Ron Gaines, right?
Yeah. So, great question there. I love covering spring ball. I love covering preseason camp because there's so many different storylines. So those are just a few positions to look at. Next question. This is from TU Owls fan 2004. Give me your hottest food-related takes, specifically Graham. Graham's not here.
Thankfully.
I think we could use
Graham's
Graham
probably
on this
gotten
one.
way too much play on food takes, but I love him. Love him to pieces, but we know he doesn't like stuffing. We know he doesn't like buffalo sauce. Do you guys have any food takes that
I
you're
feel like-
passionate about recently? I don't know that I do.
My best food take, which I don't even know if it's that hot of a take, is I can't stand celery. A lot of people like celery. I can't stand
Celery juice, very good for you.
it.
I like celery.
Not
but
I know
touching
it
it.
sounds very fad-ish.
Nope, not touching
Never
it.
had ants on a log.
No, haven't.
Pretty good.
Wait,
Won't.
ants on a log. Wait, is celery, peanut butter, and the raisins on top, right?
Yeah.
There we go. Remember
Yeah,
that.
not touching it.
First ants on a log reference on the scoop.
I don't know if I have
5
a,
seasons and 25 episodes. But
I
we
don't
got
know
it.
if I have a hot take, but as a southerner, not born in the South, but somebody who was raised there, I am very high on barbecue.
Mm-hmm.
A very big barbecue guy, and I will go to bat for sweet tea any day of the week.
Sweet tea's good. Barbecue. It's good. Kyle always laughs because was it the first game of the Matt Rule era? The opener, the second season when they beat Vanderbilt, and we went down there, and I knew they were going to have barbecue in the press box. This was my second time in Nashville. First time I was down there for a work conference. Barbecue was great, food was great, and I wasn't feeling. I mean, I was fine. I wasn't like super sick. But I was like, I'm not feeling too well. I don't want to load up on too much barbecue. We're staying in a Marriott. We get to the bottom. I was like, I really want to eat. And I'm critical of people who eat at chain restaurants all the time, but I love P.F. Chang's. He was like, we're really going to eat at P.F. Chang's before the game. I was like, yep. We ate at P.F. Chang's and then had barbecue in the press box. But Nashville's great. I have never had barbecue in Memphis. I've heard it's phenomenal. But yeah, barbecue in Kansas City is very good too.
We go down to South Carolina to get our barbecue. That's
There
what
you
we
go.
do. We're
Yeah.
right by the border. We're like 10 minutes from the border. Charlotte's like right on the South Carolina border. So
But do you guys, I mean, as college students with somewhat limited budgets, I mean, do you guys venture off campus that much to eat, or do you just kind of like stick to the basics here?
I try to go eat like once a month. Like me and my roommate try to go get something interesting to eat like once a month. There's a place, I can't remember the name off the top of my head. It's a taco place kind of near Pat's and Gino's in South Philly. That was the last weird thing I tried. And let me
South Philly
tell you-
barbacoa.
Yep.
Is what
Best
you're
tacos
talking
I've ever
about.
eaten in my entire life.
Amazing
Best
food. Sam, please go
tacos
there.
ever.
It's been. I mean, she's been featured nationally. She has an amazing story. Came to the U.S. from Mexico. Awesome food, like incredible food, and it's cheap.
Yeah.
I would
not
say
expensive.
There will be
probably-
a line. Go to, but South Philly barbacoa is the real deal.
I would say I probably venture down out more than other people because my girlfriend lives down on 23rd and Fitzwater, so I'm always
Okay.
in South. So I eat around
Red
South
Hospital
Street.
area is great.
Yeah, a lot. So I would say I've been out and about. Not your typical campus food takes. Is Graham would like to say that Philly style is good pizza, but
Graham's house sitting in Collingswood right now, and I told him he has to try. There's so many good Italian restaurants in
he's
Collingswood.
not going to, is he?
I don't know. I don't know if he will. I don't know if I have any specific, top of my head food takes right now. My wife and I are trying to diet and food prep, so it's been a lot of meat, fish, and fruits and vegetables. So I can't say I've eaten anything super wonderful recently. But
Do you have a cheat day? No.
yeah, whether it's intended or not, yeah. It's usually pizza, or usually we're trying. And again, I can't say that we've been super diligent. Like we've tried the Whole30 diet, which is 30 days of like no or limited or no sugar, no processed stuff.
My parents tried that.
No starch. I mean, you will lose weight off it. It does help, and you do feel like you're definitely eating cleaner. A couple Sundays ago, my wife went out with who will be our future, her sister-in-law, my future sister-in-law. They went out to get a couple of drinks, and I dropped them off, and I came back and just was driving through Ardmore, just completely broke down. I was like, I need 4 slices of pizza. And I love pizza, but I felt like crap after eating it, because even if you just eat clean for like a week and then you go to something that's kind of junky, you feel it. But usually pizza or sushi. With the sushi, you're not supposed to have it on the Whole30 diet because the rice is starch. But I don't know. It's just hard living in this area and not venturing out every once in a while.
Right.
Something
There's
good,
too much good food around here.
Yeah. So
It's a blessing and a curse.
Graham can continue to wallow in his simple world of not eating buffalo sauce and stuffing and whatever.
I made the best buffalo chicken dip for the Super Bowl.
There you go.
I got nervous about how it was going to come out.
Not to brag or anything.
Super Bowl staple. Yeah, buffalo chicken dip. Next question here comes from West Coast Al. 2020-2021 starting lineup and hoops. Go.
You want me to go first?
Sure.
I would say Josh, Nate, Jake Forrester. The toss-up is J.P. Mormon or Dre Perry. And then I see either Armani Scott or Quincy Ademokoya. That's probably my guess. Am I missing anyone?
Do you want me to go next?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll say Josh, Nate, Dre Perry, Jake Forrester, and Quincy Ademokoya.
I'm trying to think this through. I'm trying to think like Aaron.
The big question mark for me is Dre Perry versus JP and like what happens with Monty Scott. Like what's next for him?
I've been dying on the Monty Scott hill. I've been his biggest advocate. He's got to step up for me.
Yeah.
I really do think he has it in him, but the production
isn't there.
Hasn't been
I
there.
mean, to be fair, the entire team's production is
sure,
not been there.
But you got the missed layup at Penn. He just hasn't been doing much of anything offensively. I do think he's skilled. I think Josh Pierre-Louis has a ton of potential, but I think he's got a long way to go. But I'd say Josh, Nate, JP, Jake. I mean, Quincy Ademokoya is a good enough shooter to start, but he is a freshman. Do you start Damian Dunn over him?
That's small
I'm
ball.
gonna go. It is.
Or you go maybe Ty Strickland.
The other thing. Here's the other. I do not see Ty Strickland cracking the starting lineup anytime soon. Just based off what I've seen in practice, I think he's depth for now. We'll see. The other thing we're not factoring in here, and I love the question, is with that third scholarship, I would have to believe that they're probably going to try to target a grad transfer big, and if that grad transfer big is good or somewhat good, he's probably going to start.
Then I'd probably throw Dre at the 3 and then Jake and this other kid.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Nate, Josh.
I'm really
Dre,
hoping you put Mystery
Jake.
Man in.
And yeah, I'm going to put the mystery man in the starting lineup. So I just think it's going to be an interesting year, an interesting offseason. Will there be additional roster turnover? I mean, I know that Aaron can't really play the way he wants to play right now. That's not going to satisfy any fans, but we'll see. If Quincy Ademokoya is in the starting lineup from day one, you'll know that he's doing what he needs to do in practice, obviously, because, again, he can really shoot the heck out of the ball. But we'll see. We'll be able to better answer that question maybe in like April or May. We'll see what they do with that third scholarship. But interesting question to ponder. Next question comes from Park Al from the message board. If Aaron McKee still had a year of eligibility in his current 2020 form, how many minutes per game would he get on this team?
How many minutes would he get?
Yeah.
I mean, you remember him more as a
10
player
or
than we do.
10 or 15 plus, because I've heard he's still hooping a lot, and he's still
Yeah.
an aggressive basketball player.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, well, as a player, he was great. But they're talking about his current 2020 form now.
I think he's still got it in him.
Oh, he's still got it in him. He can still play.
I would say in between 10-15 minutes probably.
Yeah, if we were asking Aaron that question, I could hear him saying, like, man, I got about 10 or 15 minutes in me tops because I'm in my late 40s and running is running and your knees are your knees and your back is your back. But, I mean, he can think the game through. He can still shoot it.
Cherry pick a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. But he does like
if he
to
plays
play.
3-point line to 3-point line, he could maybe extend it to 20 minutes.
I'd say about maybe 10 or 15 minutes. Next question comes from Twitter, and we'll do another sweep here of Twitter to see if we got anything else. Comes from @OffTheHook1. What were your choices to attend college before you decided on Temple, and why Temple? I got back to him and said, is this a question for the recruits or is this a question for us? And he said, for the Al Scoop staff. So appreciate him taking an interest in us here and why we chose Temple. I'll go with you guys first. Sam Newman, why did you choose Temple?
All right, so here's the list of schools that I applied to. Temple, Missouri, Alabama, Elon, Appalachian State, Chapel Hill. I got into every single school except Chapel Hill.
Is it hard? It's harder
Did
to
I
get
say
into
South?
UNC?
Did I say South Carolina?
I don't believe you did.
No.
Is it
So
harder to
add
get?
some.
It's harder to get into UNC in-state. Or out of
It's
state?
hard. It's
both.
hard
Yeah,
out of state.
yeah.
It's a lot of kids from my high school went there, but I kind of narrowed it down to Temple, South Carolina, and App State. Funny enough, I went down when I was in high school, a junior in high school. I went to this. There's a journalism event for high school students at Marriott in Columbia, South Carolina, right by USC. It was hosted by South Carolina, and Temple had a booth there. They were like, great journalism school. Temple wasn't even on my radar. They're like, great journalism school. We give money. I was like, all right, I'll apply. So on a whim, you know what? I toured it, loved it here. End of the day, probably better. And I made it between Temple and App State. Probably better opportunities here. App State didn't. It's in the mountains. Not as great opportunities as Philly.
Not
so,
quite the city.
I'm glad I ended up here.
There you go. The Sam Newman story. I love it.
Yeah.
Sam Cohn.
So I applied to Temple, Syracuse, UConn, UMass Amherst, Suffolk, and I'm so missing one more.
Got some geographical coverage here. I like it. Along the eastern
In
seaboard.
Boston.
Suffolk was the only one in Boston I applied to. And UMass Amherst is out in Western Mass, and then Stony Brook was the other one I applied to, which is in New York. So I got into all but Syracuse, and Syracuse is my top choice before Temple. Obviously, it's the best communications program in the country. But I mean, I've said it before. I've said it again. I'm happy I'm here. I'm happy I'm not there. I've known since I wrote a letter to myself in 6th grade that I wanted to major in communications and be a sports journalist and go to Syracuse when I grew up. And I got the letter back from my 6th grade teacher senior year, and nothing's really changed.
So you guys did like a time capsule thing?
Yeah, same kind of thing. So I've known forever what I wanted to do. And Syracuse, obviously, crazy amount of money. I knew I wanted to be in a city. I wanted to be at a school where I can cover a D1 program and really dive into all that is.
Syracuse is upstate New York, right?
Yeah, way up. So cold, middle of nowhere versus
It's almost Canada at that point.
compared to what I have at home. This is not cold at all. This is lovely, and I'm in a city which I'm really happy with. I knew BC, BU are crazy expensive, and I was ready to leave Boston. NYU just wasn't a fit, and then I came here. I fell in love with it immediately. I was a great program here, and I was happy to be in a big sports city. And I'd never really been to Philadelphia before coming to Temple. I'd been past here on a Baltimore because my dad's from there, and I've been to New York 1,000 times.
What part of Baltimore is your dad from? Like in the city or just
outside Randallstown.
Okay.
And then my mom grew up in New York, my whole family's in New York. So
There you go.
Boston, New York, Baltimore, I know. Philly, never.
So I graduated high school in 1994 when you guys weren't alive. I went to...
Did your SATs on a rock and you took like another rock
quite.
to fill it in?
I did. I will tell you this. Like, I had good grades in high school. I certainly didn't have like Ivy League grades in high school. Temple's admission standards have gone up. I don't know that 1994 Downingtown High School graduate John DiCarlo gets into Temple now.
Sure.
But I went to Cabrini College my freshman year, which is a small Catholic school about 5 minutes away from Villanova out in Radnor. Couldn't really figure out what I wanted. From our high school, it was like people going to like the state schools, Penn State, Delaware. Looked around, thought I would like a smaller school. Went to Cabrini my freshman year. It's a great place. They actually do have a pretty good journalism program there. They've got some great faculty, some great people there. Met a lot of cool people there. But around, again, mid-90s, late 90s, Temple had a great reputation, but it was more so like Temple's great school, great area, but great school, but it's in the city, it's in a bad area, don't go there, And I thought, okay, I'll go to a smaller place. Midway through my freshman year, told my parents, I think I want to transfer. I think I want to finish out my freshman year. Kind of went back and forth on it. Visited Temple and thought, I honestly don't know why I didn't come here in the first place. And I remember the faculty at Cabrini getting me to try to stay and saying, oh, you can be a big fish in a small pond here. I'm like, that's not what I'm looking for. I'd rather be a small fish in a big pond and improve myself. And it was the best decision I ever made. Went to school here. Never imagined I'd be back working here 5 years later, but I chose it for a lot of the same reasons you guys did. I mean, you guys have, it's different in that there are more than twice as many students living on campus, and just really engaged in the city, covering the community, and but for a lot of those same reasons, being able to cover some D1 athletics, really just being in the city. So it was a lot of fun. So that's my Temple story. We're getting this question, getting this question from Pat Egan, our friend from 97.5 The Fanatic, who's a producer there, is on the air as well. Pat's an interesting story in that he didn't go to Temple. He went to Newman, but has just been a Temple fan.
Good name, I hear.
Yeah,
Good name.
Sam Newman University. So Pat's back with a couple of long questions here. He usually hits us with one that's sports related and one that's just very funny. I've not prepped you guys for this. It's always fun. It's better to do it that way. Lately, it seems like any player in the basketball program who shows potential at being a pro has had trouble progressing to that after scouts come snooping around. Why is that? Does Temple have a developmental problem? Is it the players smelling themselves a little bit too much? Is it the pressure? Even Lavoy Allen had a bad senior year. Players that come to mind that fit this description are Obi Inechionya, Quentin DeCozy, and now Quentin Rose. Or am I simply being naive and it's nothing more than a talent thing? This is one that gets debated a lot. I think Obi is a recently relevant example. He had a really good start he had a really dominant game at St. Joe's. People looked at him as a 6'8", 6'9" wing forward who could play inside, play outside, and shoot it. He had his ups and downs. Pat, I think it's a mix of maybe some guys smell themselves a little bit, but also a talent thing. I mean, Lavoy still got drafted in the second round. Still the next to Mark Jackson, the best center I've ever seen play at Temple. With Quentin Rose, I mean, he declared prior to last season to get the feedback. I think we've talked about it a million times. He has some plays where you're like, that's an NBA play, and some other plays that are maddening plays. I don't know that Quentin DeCozy scored a lot of points here. I don't know that I ever heard a lot of buzz about scouts saying like, oh, he's going to be a first-round pick. Again, with Rose, he got some NBA interest, but he asked for the NBA interest. I think Obi might be the most interesting one. I do think it's some talent limitations. I don't know that there are really a lot of these guys on this list where you'd look at and say, oh God, that guy was a surefire lottery pick, and then he played his way out of the lottery. I think Lavoy could have been a first-round pick. I still think he's kind of underrated in the sense that he's the program's all-time leading rebounder. People always wanted him to be a little bit more aggressive offensively, but he was so critically important to Fran getting his career started here. I think it's talent and recruiting more than anything else. We've talked about this again a million times on other shows. They got to start getting some guys in the league. Marty Collins, last guy to be drafted in the first round. Lavoy Allen, last guy to be drafted. St. Joe's has more guys in the league. LaSalle's have more guys in the league. Villanova certainly has. So I think it's been more talent than just a complete and utter regression. I don't know how far back you guys go on this or what your thoughts would be on this.
The only thing I'd say is that I agree with you. A lot of it has to do with recruiting and at the end of the day, talent. But sometimes you get a kind of a skewed perspective when you're watching Temple basketball play. And because when guys go off and have an unbelievable night against kind of a bum team, it's like, yeah, he does look like an NBA player. But you got to remember who he's playing against. Because when they have great games, when they play their best games, it's against other guys that are also not NBA talent. It's when they're playing the top of the line teams. That's when you look for who's going to step up and can they do that on a consistent basis. Because Temple isn't, they're not Duke. They're not Kentucky.
Right.
They're not these high, blue blood programs that are sending guys to the top 5 to the NBA every year. Mm-hmm. So a lot of it is talent recruiting, but it's also how are they playing on a consistent basis? Because if they're not going to have a great game against an unbelievable team, then you start to question.
Yeah, and I think some fans have this doesn't really necessarily apply to Pat because he's not really talking about these guys here, but I'd still love to see Shiz get a cup of coffee in the league, even if he's like a deep bench sub. I mean, he's in the G League right now with this. Unless something's changed, he's still with the Blue Coats.
He's
right?
not getting a ton of minutes, but he is.
No, and I mean, he can shoot the heck out of the ball. I mean, he's not a super quick guy. Can shoot it. Could always stand the ball up a little bit more, but after a while, I think his body type is his body type. I would have loved to have seen Khalif Wyatt get a shot in the NBA. I know he wasn't super athletic. Everybody said he had an old man's game, but he could just score the heck out of the ball. He did go to camp with the Sixers, got close to making the league, but now he's coming off. He's had a couple of injuries, but he's been able to make a lot of money playing in China, playing in Israel. Now he's playing, I believe, in the Philippines. But when Temple beat Syracuse back in was it 09? What year was it when they beat Syracuse at the Garden? Maybe 2011, I want to say. And Khalif Wyatt outplayed Michael Carter-Williams, and the fan base was saying, how can people be mentioning MCW as a first-round pick and they're not mentioning Khalif? He outplayed him. It's I hear you, but Michael Carter-Williams has the wingspan, the athleticism. No one's ever confused Michael Carter-Williams with being a terrific shooter, but he has more of the projectable stuff that
Didn't
scouts
he win
like.
the Rookie of the Year his first year?
Yeah, I think he
Yes.
did.
And then he never was the same player after that.
Yeah. So
Bounced around a couple times.
I really do think, and like you said, I don't think Temple is ever going to, they're not going to recruit at a blue blood level getting top 5, top 10 kids that we would foresee. But I think it's a little bit more than talent than it is just this outright breakdown of like not developing guys, or not to say that any coaching staff has been perfect, but to me, there's not a guy who went from being a potential lottery pick to just outright playing himself out the draft. Again, Obi Anechionya did have some flashes. He got his one season off to a really good start. With Obi, I just think it was, and he's playing over in Spain right now, having a good career playing overseas. But I don't know. That would be my take on it. Here's the second question from Pat. Oh my God, this text is so long. But hopefully it'll be entertaining. Also, you're walking home from the game and kidnapped by terrorists who throw you into an empty conference room. Oh boy, Pat. They've drugged you and given you. They've drugged you and given you a new outfit. Nothing incredible, but Joseph A. Bank during a sale. You must get out because it's National Signing Day and stories must be written. You have no idea where you are. Doors and windows are locked. You're at least 30 stories up, and there's a camera in that room. But there are a few people in the room with you. A guy claiming to be a dentist who was taken at his office. A bald guy with an English Cockney accent who was taken just outside the pub I was. And a dude in the corner who's torn off the sleeves of his Joseph A. Bank shirt, hasn't said a word, and is getting to town on a cantaloupe? I think he means antelope, unless he actually means the piece of fruit. Who do you trust to be your accomplice? Oh, and did I mention it's written on the whiteboard, one of you is one of us, so there might be a mole in the room. My God, Pat, this is the weirdest one we've gotten in a long time. I hadn't even read through all of that.
Who's your accomplice is the final question.
Who do you trust to be your accomplice to get you out of this?
So what are the options? Is a bald guy, a guy with his sleeves ripped off from his Joseph
A guy
Bank
claiming
suit?
to be a dentist who was taken at his office, a bald guy with an English Cockney accent who was taken just outside the pub, and a dude in the corner who's torn off the sleeves of his Joseph A. Bank shirt, hasn't said a word, he's going to town on a cantaloupe, and he's eating the cantaloupe. I thought, okay, I misread that. Sorry, Pat.
I might say that last guy, he seems pretty crazy, like he can get us out of there. So I'm going to take that risk.
I'm going to take the Englishman that was found outside the pub. I feel like of all people that could get me out of a sticky situation, he's going to be the one. The dentist is going to be super defensive in terms of how to get out of a situation like this. The guy outside the pub with an English accent, I'm riding with him.
I would too. And I don't know if it's the craftiness, the English accent, just it makes me laugh.
Might be a little hammered too.
Yeah. Pat, you have truly outdone yourself on this one, my friend. I have.
Yeah, I don't really know what to say. Like,
he sent me a GIF of Chevy Chase as well, leaning back in his chair, saying "Ooh, plot twist." So, that was a good one. So we were kidnapped in this scenario, thrown into a conference room. He mentions Joseph A. Bank. There's a lot to cover in this one, but appreciate the question, Pat, as Fran Dunphy used to say. So I appreciate you guys sticking with us. Thank you all for the mailbag questions, for tuning in. Enjoy the Temple Memphis game tonight, and we'll talk to you next week.